Olivia
my
Bennett
God.
watched the
Look at
Manhattan
this.
skyline
It's
grow
advanced
taller
stage.
through the train window.
No,
At 26,
that's impossible.
she had never ventured far from the quiet streets of Lighthouse Cove, the small coastal town where she taught art to elementary school children. Her fingers nervously twisted the strap of her second-hand purse as the train pulled into Grand Central Station. The city swallowed her whole the moment she stepped onto the platform. The Sterling Heart Institute stood like a glass cathedral on Fifth Avenue, reflecting the afternoon sun in brilliant shards of light. Olivia had postponed this appointment for 8 months, but Dr. Morrison from back home had insisted. The irregular heartbeat she experienced during stress needed specialized testing, and Sterling was the best cardiac center on the East Coast. She stepped through the revolving doors into a world of marble floors and hushed. Elegance. The waiting room, everything about the institute spoke of money and privilege. Crystal chandeliers hung from high ceilings, and the waiting room furniture looked like it belonged in a museum. Olivia smoothed her simple cotton dress, suddenly aware of how her worn canvas sneakers squeaked against the polished floor. The other patients wore designer labels and carried handbags that probably cost more than her monthly rent. A nurse with kind eyes called her name, leading her through corridors lined with awards and photographs of distinguished doctors. The examination room was larger than her entire studio apartment, filled with equipment that hummed softly. Olivia changed into the hospital gown and perched on the examination table, her heart already racing with anxiety. She focused on the abstract painting across from her. Trying to calm her breathing, the doctor who changed everything, the door opened, and Olivia's world shifted. Dr. Nathan Sterling entered with the kind of presence that made people take notice. He stood well over 6 feet, with dark brown hair that caught the light and eyes the color of warm honey. His white coat was perfectly tailored, worn over charcoal slacks and a crisp white shirt. But it was not his appearance that struck Olivia. It was the way he paused when he saw her, just for a heartbeat, as if he had been searching for something and suddenly found it. "Miss Bennett," he said, and his voice carried a gentleness that surprised her. "I'm Dr. Sterling. I'll be conducting your cardiac evaluation today." Olivia managed a small nod. She watched him wash his hands with careful attention, noting the slight furrow in his brow that suggested deep thought. When he approached, she caught the subtle scent of sandalwood and something fresh, like autumn air. Nathan had reviewed countless patient files throughout his career. At 34, he had built a reputation as one of the most skilled cardiologists in the country. His family owned the hospital, and expectations had always been sky-high. But nothing in his carefully structured life had prepared him for this moment. The woman before him had an openness in her expression that was completely genuine. Her hazel eyes held flecks of green and gold, and there was a natural grace about her that made his professional composure waver. "The examination, I need to listen to your heart," Nathan said, positioning his stethoscope. "Try to breathe naturally." The moment the stethoscope touched her chest, he noticed her heart racing far beyond what simple nervousness would explain. Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them. "This is my first time in a city this size," Olivia admitted softly. "Everything feels overwhelming. I keep getting lost just trying to find the right subway line." Nathan found himself smiling. "Where do you call home?" "Lighthouse Cove. It's a tiny town on the Connecticut coast. The kind of place where the biggest excitement is when the bakery introduces a new muffin flavor."
Wow.
Her words painted a picture so different from his world of hospital galas, board meetings, and society expectations. Nathan's childhood had been spent in a Fifth Avenue penthouse, summers in the Hamptons, winters in Aspen, yet he could not remember the last time he had felt truly at peace. Throughout the examination, Nathan maintained his professionalism, but he was acutely aware of every interaction. When he placed electrodes on her skin, his fingers lingered a fraction longer than necessary. He asked questions about her symptoms, her daily routine, her stress levels. Olivia taught art to children, started her mornings with beach walks, and spent evenings painting in her small studio. Her life sounded beautifully uncomplicated. Breaking protocol, after reviewing the preliminary results, Nathan faced a decision. The tests showed a minor arrhythmia, likely stress-related and not dangerous. Standard procedure would be a phone call with results in 1 week. But Nathan had never been one to follow the standard. procedure when his instincts told him otherwise.
Yeah.
Results will take about a week to fully process, he said, when Olivia emerged from behind the privacy screen. Then he did something that surprised even himself. I'd like you to return in person to discuss them. These findings need a more thorough explanation. Olivia looked worried. Is something seriously wrong? No, Nathan assured her quickly, and it was the truth, medically. I simply believe in taking a personal approach, especially with patients who have traveled far. He handed her his card, then did something he had never done before. He wrote his personal cell number on the back. Call this number directly when you're back in the city. We'll ensure you're seen immediately. Their fingers touched as she took the card, and Nathan felt electricity run through that brief contact. After Olivia left, he sat in his office for a long time, staring at her file. He had just crossed every professional line he had ever drawn. He should schedule her with another doctor. He should maintain appropriate distance. Instead, he found himself hoping she would call. The phone call. Olivia sat in a small coffee shop 2 blocks from the institute. Nursing a cappuccino she could barely afford. The card felt heavy in her hand. Dr. Nathan Sterling. The name alone suggested wealth and status far beyond her understanding. She had felt that connection between them, undeniable and terrifying. He was probably married, definitely out of her league, and absolutely off limits as her doctor. Yet when she pulled out her phone, her fingers seemed to move on their own. This is Dr. Sterling. He answered on the second ring. Dr. Sterling, this is Olivia Bennett. I just left the institute. There was a pause, and when he spoke again, his voice had changed. Softened. Olivia. Is everything all right? Yes. I wanted to thank you for being so thorough. I was wondering if there are any activities I should avoid while waiting for results. Anything that might be risky with my condition. It was a thin excuse, and they both knew it. Nathan leaned forward at his desk, a smile touching his lips. Your condition is not serious enough to restrict your activities. You can continue everything you normally do. That's reassuring. A silent stretch between them, filled with possibility and risk. Olivia, Nathan said quietly. Are you free for dinner tonight? The question hung in the air. Every rational part of Olivia screamed that she should decline. This violated every boundary between doctor and patient. This was dangerous territory for her heart in more ways than one. Yes, she heard herself whisper. I'm free. There's a small Italian place in the West Village called Luna's. It's nothing fancy, just authentic and quiet. May I pick you up at 7? After she gave him her hotel address and they hung up, Olivia sat staring at her phone. She had a date with Dr. Nathan Sterling. She had one decent dress in her overnight bag, $23 left until payday, and no idea what she was walking into. But when 7 o'clock arrived and Nathan appeared in her hotel lobby wearing dark jeans and a navy sweater that made his eyes shine like amber, when he smiled at her as if she were the most important person in all of Manhattan, Olivia knew she was already falling. Luna's restaurant was tucked away on a quiet street in the West Village. It's a kind of place locals cherished and tourists never found. Soft candlelight flickered across red checkered tablecloths, and the air smelled of garlic, fresh basil, and warm bread. Nathan had chosen a corner table, away from the few other diners, where they could talk without being overheard.
Olivia?
Had never felt more out of place, and yet more comfortable at the same time. Nathan had shed his doctor persona completely. He laughed easily, leaned forward when she spoke, and listened with an intensity that made her feel truly seen. They talked about everything except medicine. She told him about teaching children to see the world through colors and shapes, about her students who thought mixing all the paints together would create a masterpiece. He told her about medical school, about the pressure of living up to the Sterling name, about how he sometimes missed having time to just exist. My father built this hospital from a small clinic, Nathan explained, twirling pasta on his fork. 3 generations of Sterlings have walked those halls. Everyone expects me to eventually take over as chief of surgery and then hospital director. It's been decided since I was born. But is that what you want? Olivia asked gently. Nathan paused, his fork halfway to his mouth. No one had ever asked him that question. I love being a cardiologist. I love helping people. but sometimes I wonder what my life would look like if I had chosen it freely, instead of following a path laid out before I could walk." Olivia reached across the table, her hand covering his. The gesture was natural, unplanned. It's never too late to choose differently. Nathan turned his hand over, threading his fingers through hers. The contact sent warmth through both of them. They stayed like that, hands joined across the table, while the restaurant hummed quietly around them. A walk through the city after dinner, Nathan suggested a walk. The night air was crisp and clear, and the city lights transformed Manhattan into something magical. They wandered through Washington Square Park, where street musicians played jazz and artists sketched portraits under lamplight. Olivia stopped to watch a violinist, swaying slightly to the music, and Nathan found himself captivated by the way the streetlight caught in her hair. "I've lived in this city my entire life," Nathan said quietly, "but I've never really seen it like this." "Through your eyes, everything seems new," Olivia smiled up at him. "That's because you're too busy saving lives to notice the small moments. But the small moments are what make life worth saving." They walked until midnight, talking about dreams and fears and all the things people usually keep hidden. Nathan told her about the loneliness that came with his lifestyle. The endless galas where conversations were shallow and relationships were strategic. Olivia shared her struggles with making ends meet, with wondering if she had settled for safety instead of pursuing her dreams of becoming a real artist. When Nathan finally drove her back to her hotel, neither wanted the evening to end. He walked her to the lobby, and they stood facing each other, the air thick with unspoken feelings. "I need to see you again," Nathan said, his voice low and urgent. "Before you go back to Lighthouse Cove." "Nathan, this is complicated. You're my doctor, and I'll refer you to a colleague. I'll step away from your case professionally." He took her hands in his. "But I cannot step away from this. From you." Olivia knew she should be sensible. She should return home and forget about the millionaire doctor who had somehow seen past all her ordinary edges. Instead, she squeezed his hands. "I'm staying until Friday. My train leaves at noon, then give me these next few days. Please." She nodded, and Nathan pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her in an embrace that felt like coming home. Neither of them noticed the black town car parked across the street, or the driver who had been instructed to follow Dr. Sterling and report back to his father. The days that followed the next morning, Nathan called before Olivia had finished her complimentary hotel breakfast. "Clear your day. I'm taking you somewhere." He arrived an hour later in casual clothes, driving a modest sedan instead of the luxury car she had expected. They drove north out of the city, leaving Manhattan's concrete canyons behind. The destination was a surprise. A small art gallery in Cold Spring, a riverside town that felt like stepping back in time. Olivia breathed, staring at the gallery filled with landscape paintings and local artists' work. "You mentioned wanting to see real art? Not just the famous pieces everyone photographs at the Met. I thought you might appreciate this more." They spent hours wandering through the gallery, discussing techniques and color choices, debating the emotions different pieces evoked. Nathan watched Olivia come alive in a way he had never seen before. Her passion for art was genuine and infectious. When she stood before a painting of a lighthouse at sunset, tears gathered in her eyes. "My father was a lighthouse keeper," she said softly. "He died when I was 12. I still remember how he would take me up to the top and tell me stories about the ships he guided home safely. He said everyone needs a light to guide them, especially when they're lost in the dark." Nathan stood behind her, close but not touching. "Your father sounds like a remarkable man." He was. "He taught me that the most important things in life are the connections we make with others. Money comes and goes, but love and kindness last forever." She turned to face Nathan. "Sometimes I think the world has forgotten that." Nathan felt something crack open inside his chest. This woman, with her simple wisdom and genuine heart, was showing him everything his privileged life had been missing. The revelation that evening. Over dinner at a quiet bistro overlooking the Hudson River, Nathan's phone rang insistently. He had been ignoring calls all day, but this one was marked urgent from the hospital. He excused himself and answered, "Nathan, we need to talk. Now." His father's voice was cold and commanding. "I'm at your apartment. Get here within the hour." The warmth drained from Nathan's face. Olivia noticed immediately. "What's wrong?" "My father knows. About us. I need to go meet him. I should come with you." Nathan took her hands across the table. "Let me handle this first. My father can be difficult. I don't want you caught in the middle." But Olivia shook her head firmly. "Nathan, if this is about us, then I have a right to be there. I'm not some secret you need to hide." Her courage amazed him. They drove back to the city in tense silence. Nathan's jaw clenched with worry. His apartment was in a luxury building overlooking Central Park, the kind of place with a doorman and marble lobbies. Olivia's anxiety grew with each floor the elevator climbed. Robert Sterling stood in his son's living room like a general surveying a battlefield. He was an older version of Nathan, with silver hair and eyes that had gone cold with years of making difficult decisions. His gaze swept over Olivia with barely concealed disdain. "So this is the girl causing such problems," Robert said, not bothering with introductions. "A school teacher from nowhere, with nothing to her name. Nathan, I taught you better than this. Father, you don't know anything about her. I know enough. I know she's not Victoria Ashford." The name hung in the air like a bomb. Olivia felt her heart sink. "Who is Victoria Ashford?" Robert smiled coldly. "She's my son's fiancée." Or did Nathan forget to mention that detail? The truth emerged. Olivia turned to Nathan, her face pale. "Is that true?" Nathan looked stricken. "It's complicated. Victoria and I have been expected to marry since we were teenagers. Our families are business partners. But there's no real engagement, no ring, no actual commitment. It's just an arrangement everyone assumes will happen. An arrangement that will happen," Robert corrected sharply. "The merger between Sterling Medical and Ashford Pharmaceuticals depends on this union. Billions of dollars, thousands of jobs, and your entire future are tied to this marriage. You will not throw it away for some infatuation with a girl you met 3 days ago." "This isn't an infatuation," Nathan said, his voice rising. "For the first time in my life, I feel like I can breathe. Olivia makes me want to be a better version of myself, not the puppet you've been grooming me to become." Robert's expression hardened. "Then you're a fool. Love is a temporary emotion. Power, legacy, responsibility, these are what matter. You want to throw away everything our family built for 3 generations because of what you feel right now. Grow up, Nathan." Olivia had heard enough. She stepped forward, her voice steady despite the tears threatening to fall. "Mr. Sterling, I don't want your son's money or his position. I didn't even know who he was when I met him. But I know this. The Nathan I've gotten to know over these past days is kind, thoughtful, and deeply unhappy with the life he's been forced to live. Maybe instead of telling him what he should want, you should ask him what would actually make him happy." Robert turned his cold gaze on her. "Happiness is a luxury, young lady. Nathan has responsibilities. If he chooses you, he chooses to give up his position at the hospital, his trust fund, and his place in this family. Is your love strong enough to survive poverty? Can you handle watching him lose everything he's worked for?" The question pierced through Olivia like ice. She looked at Nathan, seeing the torment in his eyes. He was being forced to choose between his entire life and a relationship that was only days old. How could she ask him to give up everything for her? "I should go," Olivia whispered, backing toward the door. "This was a mistake. I'm sorry, Nathan. I'm so sorry." She turned and ran, leaving Nathan calling after her. But Robert blocked his path. "Let her go. She's done you a favor by making this easier. Now we can move forward with the plans as intended." Nathan stared at the closed door, feeling like his heart had been ripped from his chest. For the first time in his life, he had found something real, something that made him feel truly alive. And he had lost it because he had been too much of a coward to choose freely. Robert placed a hand on his shoulder. "You'll thank me someday. Victoria is arriving tomorrow for the engagement announcement. The press conference is scheduled for Friday. Get yourself together and remember who you are." After his father left, Nathan stood alone in his expensive apartment, surrounded by expensive things, and felt emptier than he ever had in his entire life. Through the window, the city sparkled with a million lights. And somewhere out there was a woman who had shown him what his life could be. The question was whether he had the courage to fight for it. Olivia sat on the edge of her hotel bed, watching the sunrise paint Manhattan's skyline in shades of gold and pink. She had not slept. Her train ticket lay on the nightstand, departure time circled in red. Noon today. In a few hours, she would return to Lighthouse Cove, to her simple life teaching children and walking alone on the beach. Everything would go back to normal, as if these past few days had been nothing more than a beautiful dream. Except her heart felt shattered in a way she had never experienced before. She had fallen in love with Nathan Sterling, not with his money or his status, but with the man who laughed at her terrible jokes, who listened when she talked about color theory, who looked at her like she was the most precious thing in the world. But that man came with a price tag she could never afford to pay. Her phone buzzed. Another message from Nathan. She had 17 unread texts from him since last night, each one more desperate than the last. She could not bring herself to read them. What was there to say? He had responsibilities, expectations, an entire life built before they met. She was just a girl from a small town who had wandered into a world where she did not belong. Olivia began packing her small bag, folding the cotton dress she had worn to dinner, tucking away the memories along with her clothes. Her fingers brushed against the card Nathan had given her that first day, his personal number scrawled on the back. She should throw it away. Instead, she slipped it into her wallet. Nathan's choice across town. Nathan stood in his office at Sterling Heart Institute, staring at the framed photographs lining his walls. Medical school graduation, award ceremonies, ribbon cuttings with his father beside him, always beside him, guiding every step. In none of these pictures did he look truly happy. He looked successful, accomplished, dutiful, but never happy. His office door opened without warning. Victoria Ashford walked in like she owned the place, which in a sense, she soon would. She was beautiful in the way of women who had never worried about money, with platinum blonde hair, designer clothes, and a smile that never quite reached her eyes. Nathan. "Darling, we need to discuss the engagement party," Victoria said, settling into the chair across from his desk. "Mother wants it at the plaza, but I was thinking somewhere more modern. Perhaps that new rooftop venue in Tribeca?" "Victoria, we need to talk," Nathan said quietly. She waved a manicured hand dismissively. "If this is about that school teacher, your father already told me. A brief distraction, nothing more. These things happen. We can move past it." "No, we cannot." Nathan came around his desk, sitting on the edge so he faced her directly. "Victoria, we've known each other since we were children. We've always been honest with each other. So I'm going to be honest now. I don't love you. I care about you as a friend, but I will never love you the way a husband should love his wife." Victoria's composure cracked slightly. "Love is not a requirement for a successful marriage, Nathan. We have compatibility, shared goals, and family approval. That's more than most couples have. It's not enough for me. Not anymore." Nathan stood, pacing to the window. "I met someone who made me realize I've been living half a life. Going through motions, checking boxes, being who everyone expects me to be. But when I'm with Olivia, I feel like I can finally breathe. Like I'm actually alive instead of just existing." "So you're going to throw away everything for a woman you've known less than a week?" Victoria's voice turned sharp. "Your position here, your family, your future. For what, Nathan? For feelings that will fade in a few months." Nathan turned to face her. "What if they don't fade? What if this is real?" Victoria stood, gathering her purse. "Then you're a bigger fool than your father thinks. But I'll tell you something your precious Olivia probably won't. Love doesn't pay the bills. It doesn't cure patients. It doesn't build hospitals or create legacies. You give up everything for her, and in 5 years, when the romance wears off and reality sets in, you'll have nothing. No career, no money, and a resentful partner who will always wonder if she's the reason you lost everything." She walked to the door, then paused. I'm not angry with you, Nathan. I'm disappointed. I thought you were stronger than this. I thought you understood what really matters in life. She left, closing the door softly behind her. Nathan sank into his chair, Victoria's words echoing in his mind. She was right about one thing. Choosing Olivia meant losing everything else. His father had made that abundantly clear. The trust fund would be cut off. His position at the hospital would become untenable. The sterling name that had opened every door in his life would become a wall of rejection. But then he thought about Olivia's smile. The way she saw beauty in small things, the genuine warmth in her eyes when she looked at him. He thought about the emptiness he had felt every day before meeting her, the sense that he was living someone else's life. His phone rang. His father's name appeared on the screen. Nathan declined the call. Then he did something he had never done in his entire career. He canceled all his appointments for the day, walked out of his office, and drove straight to Olivia's hotel. Olivia was checking out when she saw Nathan burst through the hotel lobby doors. He looked disheveled, his hair uncombed, still wearing the same clothes from last night. Their eyes met across the crowded lobby, and time seemed to stop. "Please don't go," Nathan said, crossing to her in quick strides. "Not like this. Not without letting me explain." "Nathan, there's nothing to explain. You have a life here, responsibilities. I understand that." Olivia's voice was steady, but tears gathered in her eyes. "What happened between us was beautiful, but it was also impossible. We come from different worlds, and I'll leave my world and come to yours." The words tumbled out desperately. "I'll move to Lighthouse Cove. I can practice medicine anywhere. I can start over, and you'll resent me eventually." Olivia reached up, touching his face gently. "When you miss your life here, when you realize everything you gave up, I can't be the reason you lose yourself, Nathan. I care about you too much for that." Nathan caught her hand, pressing it against his chest where she could feel his heart racing. "You're not listening. I've already lost myself. Years ago, I became what everyone expected instead of who I wanted to be. Meeting you didn't make me lose myself. It helped me find myself again, Mr. Sterling." A voice cut through the moment. A hotel employee approached nervously. "There are reporters outside. Quite a few of them. They're asking about you and this young lady." Nathan cursed under his breath. His father must have tipped off the press. This was a power move, forcing Nathan's hand by making their relationship public in the worst possible way. "We need to leave now." Nathan grabbed Olivia's bag with one hand and took her hand with the other. "Trust me, please." They ran through the hotel's service entrance, emerging into an alley where Nathan's car was parked. Cameras flashed as they pulled out onto the street. Headlines were already forming in Nathan's mind. "Sterling heir abandons hospital heiress for mystery woman or billionaire doctors. Secret romance threatens family empire." The Lighthouse. Nathan drove north, following Olivia's directions as she called her mother to explain she would be bringing a guest. They arrived in Lighthouse Cove as the sun began to set, painting the small coastal town in warm light. The lighthouse stood sentinel on the rocky shore, exactly as Olivia had described it. Her mother, Grace Bennett, waited on the porch of the small apartment above the bakery. She was an older version of Olivia, with the same warm eyes and gentle smile. She took one look at Nathan's expensive car and designer clothes, then at her daughter's tear-stained face, and understood immediately. "Come inside, both of you," Grace said simply. "You look like you could use some tea and a place to think." The apartment was tiny compared to Nathan's penthouse, but it felt like home in a way his place never had. Photographs covered every surface, showing Olivia growing up surrounded by love. The furniture was old, but comfortable. Everything spoke of a life lived with care and purpose, not wealth. Over tea and homemade bread, the whole story spilled out. Grace listened without judgment, asking occasional questions, her hand resting on her daughter's shoulder. When Nathan finished explaining about his father's ultimatum and the choice he faced, Grace looked at him with surprising sternness.
"I'm not, young man."
"I'm going to tell you what I told Olivia when she was deciding whether to pursue art or take a safe teaching job. The only person who has to live with your choices is you. Not your father, not your family name, not anyone else. You. So the question is not, what will make everyone else happy? The question is, what will let you sleep peacefully at night 20 years from now? Nathan stared at this woman who had raised a daughter on what must have been a modest income, who lived simply, but seemed richer in the ways that mattered than anyone he had ever known. I've spent my whole life trying to earn my father's approval. I'm not sure I know who I am without that. Then maybe it's time you found out, Grace said gently. She stood, patting his shoulder. I'm going to give you to some privacy. Olivia, show him your studio. I think he should see what you've been working on. The studio. Olivia led Nathan up narrow stairs to the converted attic that served as her art studio. Canvas after canvas lined the walls, depicting scenes from her small-town life. Children playing on the beach. Fishermen mending nets. Sunrise over the lighthouse. But in the corner, covered with a cloth, was something different. I shouldn't show you this, Olivia said quietly. But she pulled the cloth away anyway. It was a portrait of Nathan, painted from memory. But it was not the polished doctor from the hospital. It was the man from their dinner at Luna's, his face relaxed and happy, his eyes alive with genuine joy. Olivia had captured something in that painting that Nathan had never seen in any photograph of himself. Hope. When did you paint this? Nathan asked, his voice rough with emotion. Last night after everything fell apart. I couldn't sleep, so I came up here and painted until dawn. I needed to remember the real you, not the person everyone else sees. Olivia stood beside him, studying her own work. That's the man I fell in love with. Not Dr. Sterling, not the hospital heir. Just Nathan, the man who sees magic in street musicians and gets excited about art galleries. Nathan turned to face her, cupping her face in his hands. That is who I want to be. Not who I'm supposed to be, but who I actually am. And I can't be that person in the life I've been living. But Nathan, the cost, double quotes, is worth it. Finally, her lips with a tenderness that made Olivia's knees weak. I've been doing calculations in my head all day. I have savings my father can't touch. I can sell my apartment, my car, all the expensive things I never needed anyway. I can apply for positions at smaller hospitals, places where my skills matter more than my name. It won't be easy, but it will be real. It will be mine. Are you sure? Olivia asked, searching his eyes. Because once you make this choice, there's no going back. Your father won't forgive you. Your family will probably disown you. Then I'll build a new family. With you, if you'll have me. Nathan pulled her close, resting his forehead against hers. I'm not asking you to marry me right now. I know it's too soon for that. But I'm asking you to give us a real chance. Let me prove that this isn't about running away from my old life. It's about running toward a new one. Olivia wrapped her arms around him, feeling the rightness of this moment settle into her bones. My apartment is tiny. My mother and I share a bathroom. I teach art to children who color outside the lines and call it masterpieces. My idea of a fancy dinner is take-out pizza on the beach. Sounds perfect, Nathan murmured into her hair. Absolutely perfect. 2 years later, the small medical clinic in Lighthouse Cove was nothing like Sterling Heart Institute. It had 4 examination rooms, outdated equipment, and served a community that paid in fish and homemade pies as often as actual money. Dr. Nathan Stone, as he now called himself, having taken Olivia's mother's maiden name, could not have been happier. He lived in a modest house near the beach with Olivia, who had quit teaching to paint full-time. Her work was starting to gain recognition in small galleries up and down the coast. They did not have much money, but they had something better. A life built on their own terms. Nathan's father had followed through on his threats. The trust fund was gone, the family name forbidden, but Nathan's brother called sometimes in secret, telling him their father had the portrait from Olivia's studio hanging in his private study. He never spoke about Nathan, but sometimes he would stare at that painting for hours, perhaps wondering about the son he had lost and the choice he had forced on their first anniversary. Nathan proposed on the beach at sunset with a simple ring he had saved for months to buy. Olivia said yes, while the lighthouse beams swept overhead, guiding them home. At the wedding, small and held in Grace's bakery with 30 guests and flowers from local gardens, Nathan stood watching his bride walk toward him and thought about that first day in his office. The irregular heartbeat that had brought Olivia to him had been real, but not a medical condition. It had been her heart recognizing his, calling out across the distance that separated their different worlds. Victoria had been wrong about one thing. Love did not fade with time. It grew deeper, richer, more resilient. It built something that money never could, a foundation strong enough to weather any storm, as Nathan and Olivia danced their first dance as husband and wife, surrounded by the community that had welcomed him with open arms. Nathan finally understood what his father had never learned. True wealth was not measured in bank accounts or prestigious positions. It was measured in moments like this, in the warmth of a hand in yours. In waking up beside someone who loved you for who you actually were, not who you were supposed to be. The lighthouse swept its beam across the celebration. A constant reminder that even in the darkest nights, love could guide you home. And Nathan Stone, formerly Nathan Sterling, had finally found his way home at last. The end.